This is the Secure Family Podcast. Welcome, friend. I'm Andy Murphy, the host and the founder of The Secure Dad. This show is all about empowering parents to protect themselves and their family. I believe that security is the foundation of happiness, and I want your family to be safe and happy. If that sounds like something that really resonates with you, subscribe to the show because there's always something new to talk about. Trust me. The information that I share on this podcast is for general information purposes only. My goal is to empower you to make safer decisions for yourself and your family, because our safety is our own responsibility. You asked, and I will answer. Today, I'm giving you the answers to the questions that people ask me frequently, and there are a lot of good ones that I want to talk with you about today. All of that and more coming up on the Secure Family Podcast. By the way, this is episode number 333 of the Secure Family Podcast, previously known as the Secure Dad Podcast. And in that time, I founded the company in 2016. In that time, I've gotten some pretty interesting questions, and they range from home security to online safety for kids. And now it's really starting to focus on privacy and scam alerts. And I think all of that is very cool. And I love talking about all of these things because each of them touch how our family is safe in 2025 and really beyond. So I'm very excited for this show. I've organized the questions into home security, online safety, and then some others that don't really have a category, and that includes the really odd question that I got, and that is the reason for the title of today's show, and when we get there, you'll know it. So let's kick things off with questions about home security. And I got this one when I was on somebody else's podcast, and they asked the question, what is the first thing that I should do to secure my home? And I really like that question. Maybe you've just moved into the house and you want to make sure that everything is safe. The one thing that I'm going to encourage you to do first is to make sure that your doors and windows are currently working. If you shut your door and you throw the deadbolt, one, that there is a deadbolt, and if you throw it, that it is actually going to lock, that the knobs are actually going to lock, that the windows will actually lock as well. So you need to make sure that the natural defenses that your home has work from the get-go. So that's really the first thing that you need to do to secure your home, is to make sure that what you take for granted actually does work. And if you do have a problem with a door or a window, give yourself time to work on it. Don't just kick that off to, oh, I'll get that done later. That's a really important thing. And once you get the real basics of your home actually functioning like it's supposed to, then you can build on top of that. Making sure that your house functions like it needs to is really like the foundation for things, and then you can add on to it. Like you can add additional locks, like a flip lock, something like that, or add cameras, add a home security system. But the first thing that you really need to do is make sure that your home functions like you think that it should, and don't take any of that for granted. Another one that I got, also in a podcast interview, is it better to have a monitored alarm system or just cameras in your home? And this one was really interesting because the host and I talked, and she just said, I just put up cameras because I thought that would be enough of a deterrent. And I get that. I would think as a good person that if I go and I see a camera and I'm thinking about taking somebody's garden gnome, or they're taking their Amazon package off their front porch, if I saw a camera up there, something like that, I wouldn't do it, that sort of thing. But that's assuming that the people that you need security cameras for are going to do the right thing. And that's not the case. We are seeing more and more that with car break-ins and porch pirates, that people don't care about home surveillance systems. They don't care about the Ring cameras. They don't care about the doorbell camera. They really don't. They think if they can secure, or they can obscure their face, they're good to go. And in a lot of cases, I hate to say, that's the truth, because a lot of police departments are overwhelmed. Somebody stealing a package off your porch is not the most important thing going on in their jurisdiction. So having those home security cameras are good, but you do need to have a monitored alarm system to go with it, because your security camera isn't going to do anything proactive. Yeah, it could deter some level of crime. We just talked about that. But really having that monitored alarm system is going to help you when you need it the most. So if you have one or the other, get the complementing one. So if you have an alarm system, get cameras. If you have cameras, get an alarm system. The next one is one that I have gotten a lot, and that is, how do I keep my home safe when I am on vacation? So the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you don't advertise that you're going on vacation. Don't let people know by posting on social media. Don't blab to the neighbors, hey, we're leaving on Tuesday, we're not coming back till Sunday, because you never know who's walking in your neighborhood. So you don't want to turn your house into a target by letting people know that you're not going to be there. Because one of the things that deter home break-ins the most is somebody being home. Because a lot of times the people that want to break in and steal your TV do not want to fight you for it. So just, if somebody believes that you're inside, that's a great opportunity to defend your home without really having to do anything. So don't let people know that you are going on vacation. Another thing to do is make sure that you have lights on timers in your house. I'm a huge fan, and I have said this from the beginning, of the dusk to dawn light bulb. And this is a simple light bulb that you screw into your front porch light, or maybe you have one at the back door, or both, that as soon as it gets dark, as soon as the sun sets, that light comes on. And it's powered through your home, and it's literally all you got to do is screw in a light bulb and turn the switch on and walk away. And then overnight, that light will be on, illuminating your front porch. And if people think, oh, hey, somebody could see me approaching that door, then I'm not going to go to it. And if your neighbor doesn't have their porch light on, they're going to say, I'm going to use the shadows, and I'm going to use the darkness to get close enough to that door to see if it's actually locked. You don't want that. You want to get out there in front of that criminal and say, hey, I've got my yard lit up here, and it is not going to be an easy target for you. So having that dawn to dusk light bulb that is on overnight and then turns off once the sun comes up is going to be a great thing. That's a great investment. I think like a 4-pack of those is around $20. That is an absolutely great investment for not only going on vacation, but for just general home security. Next up, what is the best lock for my front door? So I will say the easiest answer, we touched on this with the first one, the best lock for your front door is the one that works. So if you have one on your front door and it has been there for 20 years and you throw that deadbolt and it actually latches in place, you're good. You don't need to replace that. And other people will say, oh, I have an abloy lock on my front door so it can't be picked, that sort of stuff. I get that, but you have to think about the level of criminal that's going to try to enter your home. But for just everybody, everyday family, what is on your house is probably good. You just need to make sure, again, that it functions correctly. If you want to make sure that your door can't be picked with a bump key or something like that, by the way, there are these generic keys that you can use to pretty much just bypass your lock, and it can happen in less than a minute. Bump keys can get through pretty much any lock that's there. But if you want to back up your existing deadbolt and your knob lock, I highly suggest you get another lock like a flip lock. This is something simple that works inside. It's very easy to install. Once you flip it and lock it into place, your door is not going to open. Even if somebody picks your locks and they are clean on the deadbolt and that knob lock and they can open the door, if that flip lock is engaged, they're not going to be able to open it. Also, it's going to make it really hard for people to kick in your door as well. So if that is something that is interesting to you, I will leave a link in the show notes so you can check out flip lock on your own. So the last one is, do fake security cameras or signs actually deter criminals? And this is kind of a two-part thing. We'll talk about the cameras first because we touched on this a minute ago. I think if you're going to put security cameras up on your house, they need to work. I don't think that putting fake ones out really, yeah, it's a cost savings, but you're really counting on that criminal to have some sort of fear of being caught. And like I said earlier, a lot of them today are not afraid of cameras anymore. So I would suggest if you're going to put a camera out, it needs to be real. Because one day you may catch footage that is not necessarily important to you, but it might be important to your neighbors. So I wouldn't spend my money on fake security cameras. Now the signs, I think this question comes from if I put up like a fake home security sign, like maybe you get like an ADT sign, and you put it in your yard. Yes, those signs do deter a certain criminal element, but they're not going to deter everybody. So yeah, I mean, you could put one up there. I don't really think that necessarily hurts you because it's just a sign. You can also go on Amazon and get like generic signs that say no trespassing, cameras in use, that sort of thing. Maybe just like a little dressier sign there that might deter people by saying, hey, these folks look like they take this seriously because they have a sign I've never seen before. You might try that, but that's all psychological. Have a home security system, have a home surveillance system, and make sure that they are working. That's the biggest thing that I can tell you. So now we're going to move on to questions about protecting our kids online. And this is one that becomes more and more important, I feel, with each passing day. So the first one is, how do I protect my kids from online predators? I had a great conversation with a family IT guy, Ben, who's just a phenomenal dude, Ben Gillenwater. And he started talking about the same thing that I have been saying for a long time. It's just so great to hear him say it. And it was, online chat is the thing that facilitates the opportunity for your child to be exploited. So online chat can be actually typing. It can also be voice chat, things like that, or video chat. Those are things that your kids do not need to be doing with strangers. So like my son, he plays games on Steam and he plays games like Fortnite and stuff like that. And they do have the built-in ability to be able to talk with other players and things like that. So it's a rule in our house that he cannot use voice chat or any sort of chat unless it's with somebody that he actually knows in real life. So like school friends, with me, things like that. That's the big thing. That is the real big thing. Don't let your kids communicate with people that they don't know, especially if you're not around. That's the big one. That doesn't mean that you need to keep your kid locked up in a castle with a high tower, that sort of thing, because your kids do need to know how to have conversations with people that they don't know, but they don't need to be doing that online. Those are face-to-face skills that they're going to need to have. They're going to need to watch you do that sort of stuff, and they're going to need to practice that when you're around so that you can coach them through that process. So no online chat of any sort will really protect your kids. The next one is, what are the most dangerous apps for kids? Really, any app can be dangerous. Any app can be dangerous. Obviously, Roblox is awful. I can't believe the stories that I keep reading from these horror stories of families who have realized that one of their kids has gone off with a stranger across multiple states because they met through online chat in Roblox. And it's just astounding that in 2025 this is still happening, but it is. And again, that can happen in any app. That can happen in Facebook. But I would keep your kids, I would monitor your kids while they play Roblox online. I am concerned about Snapchat. That's a big one as well. And then there are other apps that might seem innocuous that can still be trouble. And that is going to be something like Google Meet or Google Docs. Kids can use those things to communicate and get around parental controls. What's the most dangerous one? I think it's going to be Roblox, because there's a lot of evidence to support that. But really, what makes Roblox dangerous is also found in pretty much every other app out there. And going back to the online chat, if you can control that, if you can tell your kids why online chat is not good for them at their age, they'll understand it and hopefully they'll respect it. So another one that I get, and I really don't talk about this one often, but I do get it, and that is screen time that big of a deal for kids? I think that it is. Obviously, if you're in your 30s or your 40s and you're listening to this show, screen time for us was maybe a movie or like a couple of shows on a Friday night, that sort of thing, because TV and what I'll call screen entertainment was not as plentiful as it is today. You know, today we've got kids who are watching YouTube all the time, or they're playing games on their phone, or they're playing games on the Nintendo Switch and things like that. So it can be really hard to think that, okay, yeah, it's okay if my kid plays video games. It's okay if they are going to watch TV, that sort of thing. But that altogether is collectively screen time. So I do think as parents that we need to keep track of that and make sure that they're doing things like reading, going outside, having conversations with real people, helping you at the grocery store and all that sort of stuff. Don't let your screens babysit your kids. I know that we all need that every once in a while. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I didn't sit my son on the couch for a little while and let him do something so that I could get work done. That happens. But yeah, I do think that, especially for young children, screen time is something that you need to consider and maybe make some rules for in your house. Another popular question that I get is, what kind of parental controls should I use on smartphones and gaming consoles? The good news is most of those platforms, whether it's a smartphone or a gaming console, they have their own parental controls built in. And I can't just sit here and walk you through how to turn them on because it's different for every single one. But let's say your kid gets an Xbox and you want to turn on the parental controls. Just Google parental controls Xbox and watch that video, because guarantee you there's some other dad out there who has made a video that's going to show you how to turn on those parental controls, to set a PIN number that makes sure that your kids can't access it, that only you can access it. That'll be like huge. And do that with a smartphone as well. If you want, you can actually invest in a Trumi phone, and Trumi makes phones for kids. That is what they do. They have a lot of great, just naturally built-in parental controls, like they don't allow social media apps on their phones at all. I think that's really cool. So if you want to do something like that, a Trumi phone will help you, but you still have to set up those parental controls. Don't just assume that anything that you buy, any phone that you get, gaming console, computer, is going to just work out of the box for a child. You have to set that up and you have to take responsibility for it. The last question here is a good one, and that is, how can I talk to my kids about being safe online without scaring them? This is a big one because there's a lot of families out there who know the dangers that are waiting for their kids online, but they are afraid to talk about it because they feel that they may ruin their child's innocence. And I thought like that for a while. So if you're there, I was once there. And I know I have this podcast, I have this show, this is what I do. But your kids really need to understand the problems that are out there so that they can identify them. They need to know the red flags so that if they see one waving, it's going to be like, hey, Mom, Dad, they told me about that. This isn't good. So I'm going to say no to this, whatever it may be. Educating your child about the problems that they may face in life is one of the core things that we're supposed to do as parents. Don't worry about scaring your kids. Just have a natural conversation with them about the type of people that it's okay to interact with, the types of games that are okay to play, the types of apps that you allow in your home, and tell them why you're doing it. And then if they say something to the effect of, oh, that just means you don't trust me, you say, no, I trust you, but I don't trust the rest of the world. Because that's true. Yes, you trust your child. And yeah, your child's going to make a mistake. They're going to click on something they're not supposed to. They may send a text that they're going to regret. That's going to happen. That's part of growing up. But you can't trust what other people are going to do with your child in the digital realm. And I think that they need to understand that and say that, hey, this is not a trust issue between us. This is based on evidence that I've seen in the real world. And if you happen to come across one of those stories where some kid has unfortunately been abducted after having a conversation on Roblox, if you feel that your child is mature enough to handle it, you can show them the story and say, this is why we watch you when you play Roblox. This is why you can't have online chat, because these things happen. You can easily tell your kids about what's going on in the world without scaring them, because you need to make sure that it's your family against the world. It is not mom and dad against child. It is your family against the world, and you need to reframe that, because that's what we're doing in my house, and it's working. I hope you're having fun with this episode so far. I've been meaning to do this for a very long time. I should probably do this about once a year, take all the questions that I get and roll them all into one episode, because it's like it's like a sampler, if you will, of what the podcast is like and all the different things that I talk about. So I hope you're enjoying this. So here are the last few questions that are really good, and then the one that makes me really uncomfortable. So the first one I want to talk about is, why is it called doxing? This was a great comment that I got on YouTube not that long ago, because I had talked about doxing, which is the process, by the way, of revealing somebody's personal information in order to harass or harm them. A real life example of this was not long ago. All of the Supreme Court justices had their addresses and phone numbers, emails, things like that, exposed on the internet for the intent that people would come and protest them at their homes. That is doxing. And the term doxing comes from the old school terminology of dropping docs, DOCS. So it would be like documents that would prove your point about a person, that sort of thing. And so somehow dropping docs got turned into doxing, and it's spelled DOXXING, and it's sometimes spelled DOXING. Now, how we got the X's in there and not the CS from like dropping a Word document, that sort of thing, that I don't know. But that's what doxing is, and that's why it's called that. A great question that I got a long time ago that I will hotly debate forever is, what is the best beginner radio for emergencies? And this was in the context of like a two-way radio, not necessarily like an emergency weather radio, which I do suggest that you have in your home. I'm going to say the best starter radio for emergencies is probably going to be the Baofeng UV5R, and that is readily available on Amazon for about $20. And yes, the kit that you get will be great. You can get the weather channels with that. You can try to find your local emergency channels, and in an emergency, you can use that radio without a license, even though it is a ham radio. So in an emergency, you can use that. I do, by the way, say that you should probably invest in a GMRS license so that you can talk with people in your area. You don't have to take a test for GMRS. I think it's like a $35 fee, and then 48 hours later, you get an email from the FCC that says, hey, you're good to go. Here's your call sign, and you can start talking on local repeaters and with people like that. I've really enjoyed GMRS. So if you're looking at a good starter GMRS radio, I would suggest the Baofeng UV9G, and the G stands for GMRS. Okay, so now the moment we've all been waiting for, and this is where the question or the title of today's show comes from. And this one I got on Instagram probably sometime before COVID. And the question was, this is a direct message, and it said, how can I talk to kids without being seen as a creep? And the short answer is, if you're an adult, you don't talk to kids online. You don't. You don't do that. This particular person asked from a recently created Instagram account that did not have an avatar. It only had, I think, 1 or 2 followers. They only followed like 10 people. It looked like one of these throwaway accounts that somebody may have. So I just chose to not answer the question. But yeah, if you're an adult, you don't need to be talking to kids at all, period. This one is a hot question because I had an answer for it, and I think that's changed just a little bit. And that is, what is the safest browser to use if I care about privacy? And I used to say, like Firefox or Brave. I really liked Firefox for a long time, but they have recently maybe changed their data collection policies. Depending on whose opinion you listen to, they either made a odd wording in their privacy policy that they regret and have changed, or they were admitting that they were now collecting user data where they didn't before. So it's kind of what you want to make of that situation. I will tell you straight up, do not use Microsoft Edge, do not use Safari, and do not use Google Chrome, because those will track every single click, every scroll, every where you rest your mouse, and that all that information is supposedly anonymized and then sold in bulk to whoever wants it. Those are just my thoughts. And the last one really pertains to just me in general, and that is, why don't you go live? So I think that means like on social media and things like that, why I don't do lives. I've been a part of lives, but I've never hosted one. I've done live broadcasts for 25 years, whether that's, with sports or education or radio programming. I just don't really want that pressure doing this sort of thing. That's why I don't record podcast interviews live. I want my guests to feel like they can make a mistake, because I'm going to make a mistake. I tell you what, I have made a lot of mistakes in recording this episode. So I don't think I want to go live because I don't want that sort of pressure on me. And yes, I have lots of experience going live, but I don't think that's for me right now. Maybe if a really cool opportunity comes along, I would do a live, because I did have a good time doing it with Josh Summers. He had me on, and we had a great talk about like privacy and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I think there's too much at stake for me messing up or whatever. So I just want to be able to edit my stuff to make sure that I sound good and to make sure my guests sound good. If you have a question about anything family safety related, feel free to reach out to me on social media. Send me a direct message on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or any other social media platform. My username for all my social media, I'm very fortunate, is The Secure Dad. That's all that I have for the Secure Family Podcast for today. Take back your privacy and personal data with help from Delete Me. Get 20% off a privacy plan when using the code DAD at checkout. Delete Me is the official data removal service of the Secure Dad. If you enjoyed this episode or learned something new today, I'd be grateful if you follow the show, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or leave a 5-star review. Your support helps me reach more families, and that truly means a lot to me and my mission. OmniWatch is a scam and identity protection service that monitors your data, alerts you to threats, and backs you up with insurance. Try OmniWatch for 7 days for only $1. Get started at the link in the show notes. If you'd like to know more about The Secure Dad, join me on Instagram and TikTok. My username for both platforms is The Secure Dad. I'm Andy Murphy, reminding you that our safety is our own responsibility.